Here to talk about all of that and the administration's economic agenda is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, thanks for being here.
Brett, good evening.
Your thoughts on this on-again, off-again judicial tug of war over tariffs?
Well, Brett, it seems highly inappropriate for the judiciary to wade in here when the Senate had the opportunity to override the president and didn't. So, in terms of separation of powers, the Senate has chosen not to exercise their powers, and the president absolutely has the right to set the trade agenda for the U.S. This administration is committed to fair trade, and we are striking the best deals for the American people, and anything that the courts do to get in the way, both harms the American people in terms of trade and in terms of tariff revenue.
You're in the middle of very complex negotiations. We've talked to a number of people about how complex. It's like three-dimensional chess in some of these trade deals with different countries. Do these court rulings affect that ongoing back and forth?
Brett, we have not seen any of that in terms of our trading partners. They are coming to us in good faith and trying to complete the deals before the 90-day pause ends. So we've seen no change in their attitude in the past 48 hours. As a matter of fact, I have a very large Japanese delegation coming to my office first thing tomorrow morning.
Peter reported that he's hearing there are 3 deals kind of ready to pop, maybe even this week, next week. Can you confirm that? Is it close on a number of deals?
There are a couple of very large deals that are close. A couple of them are more complicated. And as we saw with the president's threat of 50% tariffs last Friday, the EU came to the table very quickly over the weekend. So now we've got the EU in motion also.
And what about China, specifically China? And that obviously started in a different place. How can you characterize those talks now?
I would say that they are a bit stalled. I believe that we will be having more talks with them in the next few weeks, and I believe we may at some point have a call between the president and party chair Xi.
So stalled. There was a time when the president thought that it was moving forward pretty significantly.
Again, I think that given the magnitude of the talks, given the complexity, that this is going to require both leaders to weigh in with each other. They have a very good relationship, and I am confident that the Chinese will come to the table when President Trump makes his preferences known.
All right, so let me go from tariffs to budget and tax policy as the Senate now takes on the president's so-called big, beautiful bill. Here's Goldman Sachs weighing in on where the debt stands.
We now have a big U.S. budget debate. And so while all the attention was on tariffs, I think the attention rightly is shifting, certainly in the bond market, to the U.S. budget debate and the fiscal picture, which I would characterize as somewhat concerning. I think that we're going to run larger deficits pretty clearly as far as the eye can see, and we're going to have more U.S. Treasury borrowing. So I think the big risk on the macro right now is actually not so much tariffs.
John Waldron, obviously Goldman Sachs. Your thoughts on that and that concern?
I would disagree with John. And the tariffs are not separate from the budget because while we will not be able to score tariff income for the CBO scoring that we'll see as the bills come out of as the bill comes out of the Senate. We are taking in a substantial amount of tariff income. So, they are not separated. And I'm not sure exactly what John meant, because I believe that the deficit will be smaller this year than it was last year. It will be smaller next year than it is this year. So we will be running deficits. We didn't get here in the 120 days that President Trump has been president this time, we inherited the largest peacetime non-recessionary deficit in history. And this debt has been built up over time. And I think by the time President Trump leaves office in 2028, we will have come back to the long-term average. We will have stabilized the debt to GDP, and that number will be going down.
Obviously, there's critics up on Capitol Hill. Conservatives don't think this bill cuts enough. You seem to be suggesting that the growth element of the equation is going to help lift the country out of the concern of deficit and debts.
Well, that's exactly it, Brett. And look, there are two parts here. And when I look in the mirror in the morning, I see a deficit hawk. So I'm very sympathetic to some of the senators who want to do more now. But again, we did not get here in 1 year. We can't solve this in a year. We are going to land this plane well for the economy, for the American people, and that is going to be done through a combination of restraining and cutting spending and growing the economy, because too big a cuts and the economy would slow down. So, nobody wants that. And then, of course, the ultimate calamity, Brett, would be for nothing to happen and for us to have the biggest tax increase in U.S. history, which would kill growth and balloon the deficit even beyond the Biden years.
Elon Musk is officially leaving his special government employee status. It was set to come to an end. As he leaves, Doge is looking at about $175 billion of cuts that they've found, and the administration is going to send forward, we're told, a $9.4 billion Doge cut package to Congress next week. And it's trying to make good on promises to slash government spending. However, obviously, that's well short of what was projected and what was talked about at the beginning. How do you characterize that as Musk leaves and where Doge is right now? Obviously, it's not finished all of its work.
Look, I think Elon came in and in 100 days did some very important work. And I would characterize two principles with Doge here. One is the absolute level of cost cutting, which Elon has set in motion. So Doge is not going to end with Elon. It is a way of thinking about cutting costs, and it's also a way of thinking about making the government more productive and more efficient. So, I would expect that these would be the initial savings, and they will continue from here. At Treasury, we have incorporated several members of the Doge team. They have become the fully trained, fully compliant Treasury employees, and they are going to be working continuously to ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse within the government system. So I think that the meter is going to keep going with these savings. And then on the other side, we're going to deliver a better product to the American people. Because, Brett, I lived in New York, I lived in Florida, and the state of New York spends about $235 billion a year. State of New York spends about $235 billion a year. State of Florida spends about $125 billion. Both states have approximately the same number of people, but Florida doesn't have an income tax. And I can tell you, having lived in both, it's better not to have an income tax, and Florida gives better services. So we want the U.S. to be more like Florida, less like New York.
I want to ask you just two quick things. One is about, as we put up the Nvidia stock today, Nvidia is seeing this big boom as obviously they had a great negotiation out in the Middle East, and also the focus on AI is benefiting that particular company as well as others. When you look to AI, where do you see growth potential? I mean, are we talking a point here in GDP?
Well, I've seen estimates that the AI spending is driving U.S. GDP by up to 1%. But I think the bigger story, Brett, can be that the increase in productivity that we're likely to see kick in over the next 12 to 24 months could add another % to GDP. So we saw that in the mid-90s as probably 10 or 15 years of IT spending finally kicked in and became productivity growth, just as we're seeing this massive AI spending that is the construction portion is adding to GDP. I think within the next 12 or 24 months, we will see a big productivity jump that will also add to GDP.
Well, that'd be fascinating. We'll watch it all. Mr. Secretary, we appreciate the time.
Good. Always good to see you, Brett.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.